like, oh, I'm just like alone on a path. I mean, eaten by.
If Nate got eaten to death by a pack of coyotes, it's like you don't want to experience that. But in terms of just like for generations, I mean, you would be the most memorable member of your family.
I'd like to begin with a fact.
So deep. So deep.
Or in Chicago, New York, or Los Angeles.
You have to go deeper, I think.
Welcome into the show. My guest today is comedian and writer Rob Stern. Rob has written for shows on Netflix, Dropout, Comedy Central, as well as pilots for Fox and truTV. His writing credits include Adventure Beast, Inside Versailles, and George Washington DTF, and he was a producer on Not Safe with Nikki Glaser. But most importantly, he is the host of the hilarious improv podcast, The Rob Stern Show. Welcome to the show, Rob Stern.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And maybe by the time this airs, we'll know what the name of the show is.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm excited to find. I almost feel like it'll be exciting either way. I won't find out till this episode comes out.
Yeah, maybe we'll discover it during this.
Yeah,
during this chat.
It's called the Fat Shits Podcast. I invite fat shits on. I go, wow, I really wish I had discussed the name of the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be really destined to fail with the podcast featuring Rob Stern. We kind of talked about this before we were on air, but you worked with Nikki Glaser, and she just, of course, did the Golden Globe and hosted the Golden Globes.
Yes.
What's your experience of that? How
with working with her?
Yeah.
I mean, she's a genius. It's I think it's so funny how she's so good at kind of downplaying that part of herself, that people don't realize that's like, no, she's like actually a genius. Yeah. Like her joke writing is unreal.
Yeah.
And intimidating. When you get to it, you're like, I mean, some of the punchlines she had in any of the roasts I saw, any of the early Comedy Central roasts she was in, you would just be like, and inevitably I'd be like, oh, like, what was that joke? And, I remember it. And then it'd be like, oh, yeah, that was a Nikki Glaser joke. That joke that I remember. So I was not surprised that she crushed last night and that the jokes were incredible. And she's just like a consummate professional. Very lucky to have been able to get to know her.
Yeah. Was it, you're credited as a producer on that show,
so I was hired as a digital producer. This was in 2016 when everybody understood by 2016 that everything had to be on the internet in some form, but they didn't figure out what that meant. So we were a part of kind of an experiment to be the first digital team for Comedy Central. They eventually realized, as I think most networks and streamers did, that you just need to have an in-house digital team for everything, not for individual shows. But for her show, there was the show, which we would participate in, but then our digital side was literally its own writer's room. It was wild. It was our own writer's room, our own production schedule. She would film her show, then we'd go to a small studio with a green screen and film our thing. And it was like literally, it was an amazing experience and very strange. And we actually had some pretty massive success for the digital team. It was like, there was times when it was literally we would just look at the numbers of the digital stuff and be like, wow, we're actually if you actually put out something quality, people actually were engaging with it. And it was really fun, just a mini writer's room, writing jokes for her. And then again, just watching her punch it up or change it or any that stuff. It was really cool to be a part of. So
yeah. What is do you have a process for joke writing? Do you have I start with this and then I drill into this, or I think of a punchline and then I write backwards, or do you have a
technique? I think it just depends on the type of joke you're writing. So if you're writing jokes for a thing like for a talk show of a kind, or like a roast or something, that more just you try to lock into the part of your brain that doesn't care, and you just go and go and go, and you know that 90% of what you're writing is gibberish, doesn't make sense, is awful, or has been done before.
Yeah.
But like when it comes to my personal stand-up, it's I think a lot of it is you honing your ability to think of a different perspective. So like I've actually taught like comedy classes where I've said this. It's like for me, and it's a different process for everybody. Yeah. That's like, first of all, accept that, like, trust me, you're going to be blown away that like somebody else writes this way versus how you write. But for me, it started with like math. You know, I was so desperate to figure out. I think a lot of comedians go through this where it's like, what's the trick, the way, because that's how we were taught like writing in high school. It's like, okay, you have your intro, your body, your conclusion, and you state your thesis, and you do, so you're trying to find that in the stand-up world. But what you begin to find out as you continue to perform it is that if you're not being authentic as a stand-up, your jokes aren't going to hit. I've been talking about that a lot with some stand-ups, is like you can just see it when somebody tried to math a joke out. Yeah. And totally. It was like, yeah, that's, you wouldn't have to math it out if you actually had a real opinion about it. You wouldn't. Yeah. I mean, think about if you're a funny person, you're telling jokes all the time, you just don't even think about it. You just have like your extreme take on whatever is going on, you know, and then, so that is really my personal stand-up joke writing style. Is now I more than write a joke down, I keep notes on my phone, and I just literally, anytime you just get better and better at catching yourself having a strong or out of the box thought, and especially strong opinions. Yeah. And once you have a strong opinion on something, and especially when you've recognized, you're like, I have a strong opinion on something that other people either do and no one talks about, or I think it's even better when it's like, I have a strong opinion on something and nobody has that opinion, because that's where you're going to have the most fun joke writing. You're going to be able to, if you believe it, if you really have that thought, if you're like, I actually love Black Friday shopping. I love the chaos. It's it's like, that's a funner place to play when it comes to joke writing. So that's like kind of like how I look at comedy writing in general now, is how do we get to the place where we can have fun, as opposed to trying to be like, here's the math and here's the thing, because everybody has
and the act out. And
and I think because everybody has a different way of getting to the place to have fun. It might be that you have to do a math thing to start having fun, but like that is not for me. For me, it is now just more about observing my own thoughts. And once I hone in on that strong opinion, I can,
Do you get intimidated? Do you ever feel like, you come into a writer's room, do you ever get intimidated by all the other writers or the other comedians?
I mean, you're always going to have that, but the what's great about having done as much comedy as we have, you just bond, you're used to it, and you need that skill. That's why I think when people are like, I think I could write something better than that, I'm like, you probably could, but you wouldn't be able to pitch it in the room because you haven't had enough stage time to get over the fact that like a bunch of that stuff fails. You're going to pitch one thing. You're going to pitch it nervously, which doesn't sell a joke. I mean, I've seen that where people pitch something and it's a good joke, but their delivery was off. And people even talk about that. SNL, they always talk about, it's like they'll pitch a sketch and it's like such a brilliant idea for a sketch, but they just weren't able to like sell it, for some reason. And then, eventually it gets made and it's like, it is a brilliant sketch. It's just like hard to, and that's why, like, what's frustrating is there are some people who are great with the confidence, but not good joke writers. And those are like annoying writers who,
get their
everybody like puts their stuff in, and then it's like, why didn't that work? It's like because they were just a really confident in the room person. That's not a guarantee for like a good joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife, who's a TV writer, she's always talking about, there's kind of the stand-up comedian, like kind of like gonzo joke makers.
Yeah.
And then
take over the room, over pitch, please shut up, stop. Yeah.
But you need them, because then there's the sort of more like, structure and sort of like writerly, people that
I call them, and I think I'm not the only one who calls this, but I call them pitch monkeys.
Pitch monkeys.
You need you need a certain ratio of pitch monkeys to organizational head writerly types.
Right.
Because the pitch monkeys hopefully get you going, but a good pitch monkey knows to take a step back, I think. Mm-hmm. Everybody should be able to do both if you're a writer. I definitely am more of the like, let me rework something, or let me, I like to think. I also am overly critical, which makes it hard to be a great pitch monkey. The best pitch monkeys are A, have a good sense of humor, but B, have no filter, no concern for bomb. Right, like I am going to, and I actually think my wife Meredith is like very good at that. I mean, we will like jokingly like pitch out on stuff. She's a comedian also and a writer, and we'll just like, just pitch out on bits sometimes, not like that we're going to use, but just like, it's fun to like, be like, oh, what do we do? And it'll be like an avalanche of pitches from her, and I'll have like one or two ideas. And it just shows it's like, you need that. And that is a valuable skill. But just like anything, it's moderation.
There are some people that are so good at that. And I'm also not really one of them. I will sort of like come up with a handful of stuff and think about it too much. But the people that really can generate idea after idea, I find it's so admirable and impressive. Yeah. Because there's just no filter. And when people are good at that, it's very, very cool.
It is cool. And it also is infuriating because it is a thing of just like, I don't know. Like with Meredith, it's like, I know where her confidence comes from and her kind of abandon, and it's amazing to see, but it's hard not to be like jealous of that a little bit. Yeah. And I mean, there's, everybody gets jealous in different ways of their fellow artists, but it is like, yeah, it would have been interesting to have a career where I really did not care. Yeah. Like really could just throw things against the wall. Yeah. And trust that I'm funny and that a good number of the things I'm pitching are really funny, and be okay that things are falling flat.
Failure is such an important part of really like any art or
anything. I would say anything, any right? Success.
So you have to do, it's sort of like to the degree which you are okay failing is sort of the degree to which you'll have like success.
Well, I think that cuts to, and this is like in everything. So I'm back in school now because I'm also studying to become a therapist, which apparently I was like, what a unique thing. And it's like, now I know like 10 comedians who are also doing that. But I'm still writing too. I just am, interested in setting myself up for a different career in the future.
For sure.
But in that pursuit, it's a different, it's the same thing. Yeah. I was surprised to find it's literally just you have to care enough about the goal to put a real effort forward and continually push when things get hard. And
the goal being like helping the specific person.
Yeah. Or no, for me, it's like the goal is to be, to get a therapy license. So, so it's like, it's career. Like I was able, if I'm able to have that purpose and hold on to it, then failure doesn't matter. And that was the same thing with comedy, which is so it was just interesting to me to come to that realization of just like, oh, it's what basically Michael Jordan said, it's like I've failed more than anyone else. Right. And that's why I'm the best.
Right.
And it's like, oh yeah, like you really have to just be like, I have a specific goal. And once you stop viewing, failures as anything as just part of the process. Once you go, I don't care. I'm not going to stop pursuing this thing. I love it. I'm excited about it. Then the failures kind of start to fall off of you because you're just like, well, I can't even. It's like if you love living in your house, but there's a bunch of crazy overgrowth you have to cut down all the time. It's like, but you love your house, so you're not like, you're just gonna get used to cutting the overgrowth and not overthink it. And I think similarly about failure.
100%. You're sort of talking about, you're going into, is it psychology, sociology? What?
The goal is to become a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll have some great material for.
Well, I had this conversation.
I've got a client named John Edelstein, and you wouldn't believe.
I could break the record for fastest to lose his license. Like they listened to my podcast once, and they're like, you can't be a therapist.
Well, but that kind of, it is a crazy time in the industry right now. And I think that is sort of universally felt. We've had all the writer strikes and all the strikes, the actor strike, the writer strike. IATSE, I think, struck as well. And
now they have the video game strike for SAG.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then you sort of couple that with AI, on the horizon, which no one really quite knows, exactly how it will, be bad, but we're pretty sure it's bad. Yeah. And then also the kind of like reworking of all the streaming models where they kind of came in and, put this big new model in place that basically failed. And so all that money that was being pumped in from the big tech companies has kind of gone too. So it's a real, is that one of the reasons you feel like you're kind of looking at other things to do?
My wife and I had a long conversation, especially with COVID. I think a lot of people ended up having those really hard, like, hey, we don't control how the world works. And surprise, surprise, the whole world could shut down. Didn't know that could happen, but apparently it can.
That was a wake up call.
And it was like, literally, I had just written on that Netflix show, The Adventure Beast. And I was like, in that like excited, like this is a real thing. And it like came out during COVID, and it's like just was not. I was like it was like a moment of like, oh, you're not. This isn't, something's wrong with this. And that was what really happened was once the Adventure Beast thing happened. And then people started finally, because things got so bad, people were finally ready to be honest with each other. And this is something I think happens in probably lots of industries where nobody wants to admit that, because they're worried that they're just fucking up. It's like, oh, I must be fucking up.
Right.
It was only when everybody started talking to each other and you started hearing so many stories of people being like, so they like hired me to write like 12 episodes in 1 month in a room of 2 people. I have an ulcer and I can't sleep anymore, but at least I have a writing credit. And it's like that conversation started, and all of a sudden we realized like, oh, and it was funny because it led to a strike, which is like, that's great. Yeah. But really what it has led to since the strike is people going like, oh, this wasn't even about a strike at this point. This is literally like a broken system that is going to come back. I 100%, all signs point to this being a huge shift, but in the end, people love media. People are willing to pay for media. And really more important in what the industry has finally remembered over the last few years is advertisers love media. Yeah. And they're willing to pay a lot of money to popular shows and programs to advertise on it. And so my take on it was my wife and I just talked, and I just said, look, we know a bunch of people in this industry. Everyone is having similar conversations. I think that it's, I don't want to stop doing this. I love comedy. I don't ever want to stop doing it, but I also don't want us to be living in, with like 5 roommates when we're 50. I was like, I mean, that's like we're just doing the math on finances and stuff. And you're just like, well, if this is where things are going to go, like we better get used to, let's talk to Nate and Jess, see if they want to cohabitate, rent out their garage to us. Like I was like, so I had those conversations and I ended up being like,
you're welcome to live with us, by the way.
Oh,
anytime.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Let me just go to my car. I have
the baby's room. You won't sleep much. I'll just tell you that.
You know what? I mean, that's the price.
Yeah.
That's the price we pay.
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, I just got to a place mentally where I was like, I thought I had to give up the dream. Like I was like, I guess I gotta. Like I had all of this stuff, and Meredith like started to point out. She's like, "What do you talk? Like we just need people like not worry about, rent." And it's like here's the list of expenses that we're actually talking about. Healthcare, rent, and this, and is like you can still do comedy. You just have to like separate that part of your brain.
Yeah,
and it's not. And then the other part was accepting that it's not. I didn't do anything. The industry just stopped being a place where growing writers can make enough to continue being just writers.
Yeah.
It really is.
Which is, it's tough, because my wife and I talk a lot about, like if you were a writer on Cheers or like a writer on Friends or a writer,
that's like,
and those are huge shows. So knock it down a little bit, but any network show, I mean, you could basically get one show.
You needed 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And you, as long as you were like smart with your money.
Yeah. You could survive.
You could figure something out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if it got syndicated, you could live on it forever. Basically. You were basically done.
Yeah. There was like in New York, there was a bunch of people who were teaching writing classes who had written on the Golden Girls. And it was just, and I know like other Golden Girls writers, I've met them, and it's literally like exactly that. Like a lot of them just wrote on the Golden Girls and then retired basically. We're like, well, I you want to keep working as a choice because probably you love what you do and it's exciting, but you're not worried about money. Commercials used to be like that too, to a certain degree. You could kind of make your year off of one commercial. So all that's changing. And, I hope that it's not just huge tech gobbling up, like consolidating I think creative industry. I'm actually pretty optimistic in that. I do think that there's no doubt tech is going to change a lot of things. But in the end, it's the unpredictableness that's going to create new and original stuff that interests people.
Yeah.
And I don't think, it's literally, I think they're called like predictive language models is like the current AI that like everybody uses. And it's a thing where it's like very impressive to interact with. When I interact with it, it is like, oh, this is really cool that it's understanding everything.
Yeah.
But as a writing tool, because I've just been like, oh, let's see, if you're a writer and you haven't tested out AI to see what it can do, I don't know what you're doing. You should at least try it. So I'll plug in crazy concepts and be like, give me, this, give me that. And then what was really nice is I did this recently. I just was like, I wonder if ChatGPT can just write a whole musical. So I gave it like a prompt and I said, write a musical about a woman who can read minds. And it basically was able to only pitch out concepts for like acts and some descriptions of scenes. And then I was like, can you write the whole thing? And it goes, no, it's like it's like it's very complex, like the process of that, which is like, okay, I think that like, that buys us maybe 5 years, but I don't know. Like,
yeah, exactly.
But at least for now, like, I think that, unless, I mean, I agree. It's a sad thing, but I also think that like people are already kind of bummed out by AI content. Like it's already starting to take over social media.
100%. We listen to like music when we make dinner for the baby, and we'll just ask it to play like cocktail jazz.
Yeah.
We'll say like a calming dinner jazz.
Yeah.
It's like a frequent request, and it'll start playing stuff. And every once in a while, we'll just be like, is this just some AI song that just got pumped into Spotify? And it's like, even if it's not, the idea that you could just sit at home all day just pumping out, like instrumental jazz tunes from, an AI app and then uploading it. And then
I feel terrible for musicians because they're going through that. I mean, they've been going through it for so long now.
Totally.
Ever since Napster, it was like just been just like, I don't understand why we've just don't value. We love music. It is so integral to who we are as humans.
Yeah.
And then for us to be like, looking for ways to cheapen it, just sad. But I saw today, I got advertised on Instagram because I have the podcast, every once in a while I have to look up audio tools or something. So now I get to advertise like audio stuff for musicians. One of the things they advertise now is you can basically hum a tune and then input it, and then choose the AI voice you want to sing that tune, and then you can just write the lyrics,
or it'll write the lyrics probably,
or
right?
you could probably have it write lyrics even at this point. But then it's like, and now you have like this singer, and it's like, could you imagine being like, wow, I love this song, and it's like, this was written by, and I loved her, her voice. I would love to, go see her live. And it's like, you can't, she doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. Not a real person. Yeah. I ran into a guy at a barbecue who was like, I just created, he basically created an AI, an image, created an Instagram account, billed her as a musician, then created her music with, whatever the, Donna or Sonos or Suno or whatever the AI apps are. And people were following it and like into it. And he was like, this is crazy. And I was like, it is crazy. And I can see how exciting that would be. But also it's like the death of
it's so
everything
sad.
Human and good about. Yeah.
I mean, I look at it like, farmers who ended up having to sell their farms to like conglomerates because the farming machinery just got to a place where it's like, actually, I just need one man to, basically pick all this corn because he sits in the corn picking machine. Yeah. And it's just like, so I look at it and go, look, that's just how things are. There's people who thought they would be, living on a farm and having that life. And I'm trying to like see the positives and get excited about it. One of the things I've learned to do optimistically is what we're doing right now. I think that there's a lot of negatives out there, but what is really positive is that people are able to really produce high quality stuff from their own home.
Yeah.
And so I think that we're stifling voices with technology, but we're also increasing the voices with technology. So I think it's just got to be like kind of a shakeout period where, I may just be a therapist in a few years, or I could be writing on something, or, who knows. But that was going back to that. I just want to say like, that was our main talk, is it's like, I just need to remove that part of myself that was worried about paying bills.
Yeah.
So I could focus on having fun with entertainment, writing, producing. And it's exactly what everybody said. It's like the second I went back to school, I got like, 3 jobs, and it's like the second that I'm like, get a therapist license, I'll get, I'll sell a movie or something.
Of course you will. Yeah. 100%. Well, it's also, it activates you. It juices up your spirit and your creative juices.
And I think that's really important to artists and writers in particular, is like, get your brain back to the place where it's like, it's really fun to write. Like I since I've been in school, I have all these ideas for things I want to write now that I didn't have before, because writing was writing contained all of the emotions I had about the industry, life, and money. And now I'm loosening that, and I'm starting to, like I just got to write on that Dropout show. It's called Make Some Noise. So they had us submit a ton of prompts that are kind of like set up for improv games. Very funny show. But it was so fun to do it because I'm literally like writing that. I'm literally like studying for finals in a statistics course I had to take. And at the same time, then like all of a sudden it's like, this is a really fun way to, take a break. I get to just write like the wackiest pitches I can think.
Totally.
So it is giving me back that joy. And I've kind of been spread that message to any of my writer pals or comedians who are filmmakers or people who are really, there's been some really dark stories out there, and I think
it's
like for a lot of people,
for creatives,
it is. And I'm just trying to be like, hey, get back to the basics. You didn't start this because you were like, one day I'll be a multimillionaire. We all had a fantasy of that. But
there was some,
there was some fantasy about that. But I don't know. I felt like most of the people I've stayed close with had like a general rational thought of I'll end up. I mean, even for a moment, I thought I would just be like an editor. Like I was not,
like a video editor.
Yeah. And I was like, I that was exciting. It was like, oh, okay, this will be what I get to do in the entertainment industry.
Totally.
As long as it pays, it pays the bills and I'm doing something creative and fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. And it's been, imagine for people who really had started to pay, like I at least live in one bedroom and we've lived small for a while and for us, small for us. And we have one car and we're generally pretty good about expenses.
Yeah.
But, I know people who bought things.
Yeah.
I've talked to people who bought not one, but two properties and had to be, like boo-hoo. But it was a thing where it was like crazy to hear them be like, I didn't expect I'd have to sell.
You can buy stuff that seems like things that you should everyone should have a house to raise their kids in, it's
of course. And also no one expects an industry to change this much. Everybody understands that industries fluctuate, but it wasn't the closest thing I could say it's akin to is I experienced the recession crash in 2007. And that was I was working in news. This is interesting. Like I was saying this to my wife, we were talking about the sliding doors, which moments in your life do you look back at and go, oh, that's a very different life that I almost had. And I was working in news. I was an audio producer, a video editor. I was friends with one of the directors, the news directors. So I was like realizing, maybe I'll start picking his brain about that. And I even went to ABC World News and got to meet with some people there because I was like, oh, this is
your path.
This is my life. I'm just, and I was, part of me was really excited for it. And then literally the crash happened and the company, the news network, it was a local news network in Westchester, New York. It was how you picture it in movies or something. It was a line of people. It was literally go wait on the line.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get to the door. They're going to tell you your measly severance package, and you're gone. And that's just where we're at.
During that crash, I was a blue man when that crash happened.
Did I not know this?
So I'd been cast in Blue Man Group, and the way that it works is they do like a drumming. If people haven't seen Blue Man, there's a lot of drumming and music.
And this was in New York.
This is in New York, and I'd auditioned for Blue Man. This is through my manager.
Oh my God!
Early acting stuff, and so they do a drum audition and then an acting audition. And they do the drum audition. I didn't play the drums. And so I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to get this show. I don't even know why I'm here. But basically what I learned is that they were just trying to see if you can, if you have enough musical ability to maybe learn the drums. Can you be taught, basically? And so I got cast through the acting audition. So they're like, you're cast, you're a blue man, but we have to teach you how to play drums. So every day for 9 months, every week for 9 months, I went to drum school.
Holy moly.
I learned how to, you're a young actor. And I was like, this is my big break. This is my chance to be on a stage, 8 nights a week or whatever. And really make my living as an actor. I was a waiter at this time.
Oh my God, that would have been amazing.
I mean, they probably would have sent me to Orlando, I think. So but
to get paid to do entertainment,
to get paid to do
is so exhilarating.
100%. And it was I felt like it was a big break about to happen. And so I was in this drum school for 9 months, and then the economy crashed and they closed all the shows and they closed the training program, and they were like, you're fired. But they were like, when this is over, when the crash is over, and if we open up schools, we'll call you back and we'll
I don't know why I just pictured him drumming it out. You are fired.
You are. Yeah, it was a bunch of blue men showed up and they blew a marshmarshmallow into my mouth and it said you're fired on it. But it broke me. I mean, I was I quit I got a job in real estate after that because I was like, I can't take this. I can't do something for 9 months where and not getting paid for that, by the way. Just drumming at 2 a.m. after my shifts to try to practice this stuff. So yeah, it was it broke me.
And that's, I think that what's really hard for older boomers has been trying to explain to them. It's I don't know. And I'm not talking about actors and writers. Like I know you're, but I am talking about just like regular day job people. I don't know anyone in my generation who didn't have some form of heartbreak like that.
Yeah.
Like it's just been a regular part of our generation's experience in the workforce is that things just keep.
Yeah, this idea that there's like a comfortable corporate job that if you work hard and get, you'll have a pension and all that. I mean, that's been
that is gone. The only people I know, people I know who are doing well are tradesmen and finance people.
Yeah.
I know people who are like pharmacists who are like struggling. Like you're pharmacist. It feels like the
safest.
Yeah, it feels like come on,
like a dentist or something.
Well, that's like honestly like part of going back to school. I had to have the realistic conversation where I said, this could happen again.
Yeah.
Like, do not be like, now I'm going to be a therapist. And this is the, it's like, for all I know,
easy street.
Yeah. They come out with AI therapy. And then it's just like, why would you pay, somebody $50 to $100 an hour when you can subscribe to AI help?
I do have to imagine that I think there will be some rebellion again. I think humans appreciate humanity and other humans. And I don't think we'll be able to, I think it's a novelty. It's certainly going to be a revolution. I'm not saying that AI is going to like go away or anything, but
no,
I think people will push back. And
I think the hope is what I'm seeing is, at least in the entertainment industry, I think there's becoming like more of a conversation of like, so, how can this help us create? But why this doesn't have to take over everything. But that being said, like, I just think like everyone's living kind of in a time of flux for the most part, unless you're part of the, top, 4% or whatever.
Yeah. Even that. Yeah. I mean, globally you're in the 1% if you make over like 35,000 a year.
For real?
Yeah. Globally. So it's like, it's all perspective. It's all, and it's, very hard to live.
Getting back to the positive, I want to say like, so it's awesome that my very funny, talented, hardworking friends can finally showcase those talents, and just you're doing it from your home. You're making your own thing. I think that's awesome. I also am like, once I got over the idea of like, oh, maybe even if I was writing on a successful show, I'd need another source of income. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, once I got over that and I go, oh, and then you talk to Gen Z, and for them, anybody who's like been in the workforce for a little bit, the way they view things is more gig economy and hustle economy. Like, I don't like that stuff, but I do think there's some positive acceptance I'm having in like, maybe I'm a therapist TV writer. Like that's just what the future is you're a therapist TV writer and you deliver for DoorDash. And I mean, that was the craziest conversation.
Do we want to accept that as the future?
I don't know, but it was crazy because people were talking about, I forget what show it was, but there was a show that was on Netflix. Notoriously, they're not the best at paying people, and they
this show sponsored by.
I know. Sorry, I should say sometimes they are.
Yeah,
I don't. I just don't. I don't know the rules for them, but there are actors, especially I've known, who is like, I don't know how that works with SAG, but for some reason they, and they would. There was a story where a guy was an Uber driver, and he was a very recognizable character on a hit show, and so he would just pick people up, and they would just be like, oh crap, you're the guy. And he's like, yeah, where are you going, dude? There's,
not to cut you off, but to circle back to therapy. I do have a friend, and she is a on-set therapist for a reality show. So like if you go do, I don't know what it is, like if it's Survivor, or I think it's like more like one of these shows where it's like Love Island or something. I don't know what it is, so I don't want to blow up any spots, but it's like if you go to a reality show and you're in these like high pressure environments, and
I mean, it's insane,
and you get kicked off,
even watch this.
and they need like counseling, because you feel like your life is over.
Yeah.
No,
so anyway, I have like mixed feelings about that. So my wife loves Meredith loves that stuff, and I have to leave the room because I'm just like
it's too
because
awkward,
I'm like okay, some of it's not everybody, but they definitely cast some people who are troubled.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm always like, at what line are you taking advantage of someone someone who like, has clearly in casting exhibited some mental health crisis stuff that you're not, so
I think they're taking advantage of everyone, kind of just like the normal
I've seen-
person's desire for fame. And
I've talked it over with her, and there are people who it's like, there are people who get it, and it actually
They're
isn't like
playing
traumatic
along.
to them.
Yeah,
They're like actually
acting, kind of.
getting that this is all just like ridiculous and fun and something they'll be able to laugh at in the future.
Right.
But I think there's other people, exactly, who it's like, I'm glad she's on set. I think that's really healthy to be like, you're doing something really crazy and hard and weird. And I think there's a value in, I get a ton of value out of therapy. That's why I'm pursuing it. But it's something that I think that we're at least beginning to understand. I describe it like we're starting to realize that we've built a world that we're actually not mentally designed for.
Yes.
Totally. And it's so funny because we're the ones who created it. It would be like a bunch of bears like building their cage and then being like, oh, crap,
this sucks.
This kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's, we have amazing benefits to living the life we live, but also I think we really need to talk more now more than ever about what we're experiencing internally.
I always think that like the way the human body and spirit was like, we are meant to be in a group of like 50 people outside all day, walking for 4 hours, like eating like grass and leaves and berries and like, and then like sitting around a fire at night and like telling each other stories. Like that is what our human bodies crave, and
that is what your mind is made to do,
built to do.
Yes.
Yeah, like
I always say, I come from a line of like farmers, especially on like my mom's side. And if you look at my family, we all kind of look like farmers. Like at least like my
strong forearms.
I mean, my sister and my brother, like we look like those people should be out in the fields, like fucking lifting hay. And part of me is always like, there's a version of me that I wonder if my mental health would just be so amazing if I just was like, I don't really talk to people. I just lift hay and, and then I come in and eat a dinner and go to sleep. And that's like my life. And
for sure. Well, and also your life was so fulfilled, like day to day, you were like hunting for your food. You know what I mean? Exhausted and giving it your, all your senses were activated.
Yes.
If you caught a rabbit, like how you're so, the
celebration, like you understand why they had these, like, it's like now we say grace before a meal or something. And it's this, thing where you're just like,
check it.
He's like, exactly. Let me check the box just in case. He has something
watching,
to do with it. Yeah. But it's like back in the day, you could see where it was like, no, thank you so much. Yes. Like I am so hungry and you saved me. And it was a real thankfulness that we don't have as a regular part of our life anymore. Like I have to manufacture that gratefulness.
Yeah, 100%. And you like I've been hearing this a lot where it's like, if you're tired, if you're like really tired all day, it's not because you're not like getting enough sleep. It's because you're not like being fulfilled by anything. Like nothing you're doing is really interesting, or like, we're just not built to sit at desks for 8 hours a day.
But
like, stare at screens.
I think it's like the physical part is affecting our mental health. I mean, that's the part that like everybody is like, there's so much evidence at this point that physical activity is necessary for positive mental health, which is it's hard for a lot of people here because physical activity is really hard in the current life we live.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you were hunter gatherer, like actual homesteading, family or something, you were like, I'm not exercising. I'm just like, doing all this work so we can survive.
Yes.
And it just so happens that this is the equivalent of doing like, 2 CrossFit classes or so, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, like when you moved here from New York, did you notice the huge change?
Oh, in the walking? Oh, yeah. We had to, I mean, what's been great is we like recognized it. And then now Meredith and I consistently, literally right after this, I'm going to my friend Andrew's house to go for a walk.
Nice.
Because that's like what I realized I have to do. You have to manufacture that part of my life. So I just call people, make a plan to go for a walk or a hike.
Yep. Yeah, hikes are big. And we call it hiking here, but it's just walking.
Yeah.
Sometimes I mean, it's basically up a hill.
Sometimes there's a hill.
Yeah.
And occasionally there is wildlife, and it's very strange when that happens.
I was on a hike in Griffith Park and I came upon a pack of coyotes, and my instinct was to like, I was like, like come over here, little guy.
because they are cute.
And then they did. They like all started walking towards me, and I was immediately like, oh fuck, they're gonna. Yeah. And I was like, I like waved my arms around and like did all this stuff. Like get out of here.
Oh my god.
So like, I'm just like alone on a path. I mean, eaten by.
If Nate got eaten to death by a pack of coyotes. It's like you don't want to experience that, but in terms of just like for generations, I mean, you would be the most memorable member of your family.
Oh yeah,
like anyone that dies a crazy death. Yeah, people remember that.
Oh god.
Like there was a guy in my high school and he was just like, like he's like his whole family just knew that somewhere in the 1800s this guy, his name was whatever, was beaten to death by a shovel on a bridge.
Oh god. Jesus.
But it was just like, oh yeah, that's how
you'll live on
remembers your name after that. My great uncle Charles died in Pearl Harbor.
And is that right?
I was like, yeah, we'll just forever, we have like memorabilia and stuff from, I said memorabilia. What
memorabilia.
Is it memorabilia?
Yeah, memorabilia.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying like, is it memorabilia when it's like, artifacts from a dead person? Like, memorabilia is more like, like I don't have like an action
more
figure.
Like a reverent. Yeah. It's totally. You have respectful remembrances.
I got a T-shirt with him giving a thumbs up.
I got a pop. What are those Go Pop heads?
Yeah, exactly. I have exactly. I have what's it gonna? When we were growing up, what was it called? It was called. They had those like the baseball players, the basketball players, the dunking. It was really popular.
Tops like baseball cards?
No, it was a action figure that you would get, but it was like more like I forget what.
Yeah.
They're really popular. But anyways, that's not what I'm talking about.
Well, I don't want to be the guy.
I don't want you to be that guy either. However, you'd be the most memorable person I ever met in comedy.
Yeah.
It'd be like, oh wow, you worked with Nikki Glaser, and I was like, yeah. I worked with Nate Williams.
That guy got eaten by coyotes in Griffith Park.
Yeah. There was an Australian guy that I was talking to recently, and he was from Sydney, and I'm like, oh man, I can't imagine living there. I love wildlife, so I know a ton about I know about the Sydney funnel web spider, and I'm like, I can't imagine even knowing that thing exists near me.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, you don't understand how crazy you sound to Australians because you literally live with mountain lions. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that we just have mountain lions that live in our backyards.
Yeah. What is it, like B57 or whatever
that guy passed away, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I mean, he lived a long life, but that was for a long time. But then there was supposedly another one that's like kind of moved in. Anyways, it's just part of our life here in LA. Coyotes and mountain lions.
What is we're getting near the end.
Great.
We're getting near the end here. Yeah. But what is, like, if you could tell yourself something, first of all, how old were you when you did you want to be like an actor or like a comedian growing up? Was this like a lifelong dream? Did you find this later in life?
No, I think I was always drawn to it in some capacity. I grew up in New York, so it wasn't like such a foreign concept to me, the idea that you could become an actor. My mom took me into a big giant open call movie audition when I was young. I don't know what movie it was for, but I remember because it was this crazy thing where you'd get called up. They rented out a giant theater, so they would have chairs for everybody, which I thought was really smart. So it was just a bunch of like 500 kids just sitting in chairs, like waiting to be called up. And then you'd go on the stage and which was really
terrifying.
It is, but it's also really smart. I mean, you want to know this kid can perform in front of a giant, crew of people, and it was just, we lived 45 minutes out. My mom had 4 kids. So it wasn't something that she could have easily helped me pursue at a young age.
Right.
And then I think a lot of comedians, actors, a lot of us, we do theater did you do theater in high school and stuff?
Yeah.
So I did theater in high school. I loved it. I love being on stage. I love just being in a theater. It makes me there's something that just makes me instantly happy about being in a theater. I mean, speaking of multiple jobs, I'm also an usher at the Wallace. This month I had finals in statistics. I wrote on a TV show, and I also was an usher. That's like my life
right
now, and I'm just getting. But part of the reason I love being an usher is like, I just like being at the theater.
Yeah,
it just makes me happy. I'm in a good mood when I'm there. But yeah, so I always felt that, and then in my 20s, I got in college, I got terrified. I was like, oh, you can't do that. Like I was just at the worst place in my life. And part of being in that place was just telling myself over and over again, well, you can't do this or you can't do that. And so then I was like, well, maybe I could do like news, which is like such I think a lot of people end up in that position where they go to the left of the dream because they're just scared, a little too scared. And what was great is I'm fortunate enough. My cousin is a comedian, pretty successful, working actor, John Gemberling. Some people may know who he is.
Oh yeah, that's your cousin.
That's my cousin.
Great podcast as well.
Yeah. They stopped it. The Phony and Cawley show.
Oh, why?
Yeah, because John doesn't like it. Was he said he didn't like It was like he didn't want the commitment, for I don't know. I mean, he's also like a working actor, so he's like doesn't. But I love that podcast. But he was super nice, and he had already found success. He was actually writing on the second iteration of the Man Show, the show where it was Joe Rogan and Doug Stanhope, I think, or I forget, but it was And I asked him if he would, meet with me for lunch and just talk to me about the career. And that was kind of the beginning of like him just normalizing it for me. I think when people talk about like nepotism, obviously like there's real nepotism where it's like they help you in your career.
Give you a job or give you a...
Yeah. And in my case, I would say it was super helpful in normalizing what the career is. He said things to me that was just like, made me look at it as like, oh, this actually is like a thing that people do. And when you see somebody that's famous, it's actually because they've been working for many, many years, honing a skill. And just like anything that you went to school for, you can learn how to do it. And that was, he was doing stuff at UCB. So I just took some classes at UCB was the first part. And that kind of was, I had it in me from that moment on. It was always simmering that I was like, I just love this. It's so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge, actually, to have somebody give you that confidence early on that like, this is doable. This isn't like
I do not take that for granted at all. I think there's so many people who, especially if you grew up in, like you grew up in Columbus, so at least it's like a city. There's stuff there, but but like if you grew up in like a rural area and you take that risk, like so much power to you. Because I know I wouldn't have. I know if I grew up in rural Minnesota or something, I would not have pursued this because it would just seem so out there and weird and just kind of like who knows how this stuff happens then instead have somebody who's just like, oh, actually this is how it happens. And I think part of what's nice about the way media is now is people are actually do know a lot about actors, writers, directors. Like they know a lot about your personal life, where you came from. So it's like becoming more understandable that you can, that anybody can do this, especially with social media. We're seeing it.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. You're getting a real window into the kind it's not a total, I think it masquerades as, like truth a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're not getting a full, but a lot more than you used to.
100%. It is not some like complete mystery how this works.
Industry works a little bit. Yeah.
Like when I was growing up, it was always, they got discovered.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was always like, I don't understand what that means. And then later on to find out, it's like getting discovered became a thing they knew that people like to read. Yes. But what they weren't saying is they got discovered after 10 years of being an actor at, and working in a high profile restaurant in Los Angeles.
Yeah, or being on stage off Broadway for 10 years.
And then they're working at this restaurant where they serve directors and producers all day.
Yes.
And eventually one of them asked what they do.
Yes,
And,
yeah.
well,
that's what I thought Hollywood was. Like before I moved here, people were like, Hollywood, like people are doing monologues to watermelons in the grocery store. Like it's just like a madhouse of trying to get discovered. And that getting discovered meant going to bars or clubs and like rubbing elbows with producers.
Yeah.
And like, that was how it, like when people
Yeah.
would say like, it's who you know, I was like, that's what that meant to me. It was like going to a bar.
and maybe I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but I think more
In the
often than
70s
not,
maybe.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I think more often than not, at least like the way it really happens is it's like, oh, you're interesting. We're conversating. And then you say, I go, oh, what do you do? Well, I'm an actor or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, have you done anything I've seen?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, but I did this.
The way, yeah, I mean, that for sure. The way I've really seen it happen, though, and when people say it's who you know, it's like it's your legitimate friend group. It's like the people you're really friends with, and you all rise together. Like that is the way I've seen it
100%.
happen.
I mean, I've never gotten a job that wasn't through a friend.
Right.
That has just been my entire career. And that is how this industry works.
Yeah. For better, for worse.
For better, for worse. I mean, but the point is you're going to make a lot of friends in the industry if you just start.
Yeah.
So that was like the big lesson to me is like you go to a comedy theater or you join some other sort of theater group or you start putting up plays, you're going to meet a million people. And one of those people you're going to be drawn to form a deeper relationship with.
Yeah.
And that's what happened for me. I mean, I made, you and a bunch of other people who I just like, I really like you. And we actually share a lot in common outside of just doing this comedy.
And I've given you so many jobs.
You
so
have.
many successful,
No,
high paying.
No, but the point is that like, if we had jobs for each other, that's the other thing that people realize. It's not like, it's not like, oh, you get a job. It's like, no, you're my friend who I've seen and I know you're talented and I would 100% recommend you for a job if there was one that fit anything. And if I was ever in a position to do that, which I've never been in, not even remotely close. It's so funny because I told some people I wrote for the Dropout thing. Literally 2 people already have been like, what about this idea for a show? And I'm like, do you understand that like they won't, like even like these people aren't going to even answer an email I said to them.
Yeah.
Like this is not,
Yeah. Rob, what's one good thing? One good thing in the universe?
Yeah.
One good thing in life?
There are many good things. I would say one good thing that I'm really enjoying is I do really enjoy being in class right now. Nice. And I'm looking forward to the new semester starting. And I go to CSUN in Northridge, and it's this giant campus filled with young people pursuing, dreams, and it's very energizing. I don't know. It's unfortunate that there's no way to kind of replicate that energy. The only way I've ever experienced it similar is being in like Grand Central in New York has that kind of energy where you're just like, people are going places,
Right.
And I think similarly, like I'm really enjoying interacting with the teachers. It's funny being the same age or even older than your teachers. And the way you connect with them is just a different thing. And I had a situation where I kids just they can't really see your age for some reason. I think at that young of an age, which I kind of understand. I don't know why.
Yeah,
it's like they can't fully grasp that 40-year-olds aren't like walking with like a cane. Do you know? So like when people find out that I'm 43, I've had like literal students in the class be like, "What?" And I go, and then I turn into like a ghostly specter, and I go, yeah, and guess what? I'm married. I've been married for many years. And they're like, no, really? And I go, and here's what's even crazier. I'm older than the teacher. And they're like, no,
no way.
So crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm really enjoying it. And it just gives me more and more evidence. Try new things. Wherever you are in your life, try something new. It doesn't have to be crazy. take a woodworking class or something, you know, but just like get out of whatever you're doing. If you're feeling like I was, which was kind of stuck, confused, and I think movement begets movement, and that's where I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling very positive.
Nice. Do you have anything? You want to plug anything? Any shows?
Listen to my podcast. It's a
great podcast.
I really love it. People who listen to it love it, and it's very interesting because I think I'm doing something a little different than other people are doing. And I also am like really excited to get feedback. So if you want to listen to it and write some mean comments, I'm down to listen. I can handle it.
And it's called
The Rob Stern Show.
The Rob Stern Show. And we can find it on every podcast.
Anywhere you get your podcast.
Anywhere you get podcasts. Rob, thank you so much for coming on the show today, man. This is historic. They're going to look back at this and it'll
like,
be
there's the guy who got ate by wolves.
Yeah.
Oh, coyotes.
These two guys got ate by coyotes
but
later this year. They talked about it and then they went hiking.
Look, if I have to go out and it's with Nate Williams, I couldn't ask for better company.
Hell yeah, brother. Right back at you. Rob, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nate.
I'd like to begin with a fact.
So deep. So deep.
Or in Chicago, New York, or Los Angeles.
You have to go deeper, I think.
Woo!